I promised you an ending tip about authentic communication. And the other thing I'm learning about authentic communication after, I guess YouTube recently said it was like an anniversary of my YouTube channel. I don't know if it's like the first or second year, to be honest. Feels like it's been more than a year. So I've been engaged in that, or writing on my blog for before I was trying to write on my blog for a few years. So I've been developing my coach voice for a while, and I still feel like I am early in this journey. But the other thing I've noticed is that being authentic is as much about what you're not as what you are. Right? Because there's a lot of people who want to think like, hey, I'm supportive, I'm encouraging, I'm insightful, I'm critical, I'm all the things. And when you're all the things, you're none of the things. What you really want is to, in fact, being authentic is often about what you're not more than what you are. You should be like 1 to 3 things primarily. You should not be everything else as much as you can. You shouldn't be any of those other things, right? And so like the stuff that you exclude actually should be a lot bigger than the stuff that that you are. You should be focused on just a few things and being authentic. I remember going into I was taking crisis counseling training, and the person running the course gave me these words which like both kind of haunted me and encouraged me. And I'm trying to specifically remember the 3 values he said. He said, I had a lot of innocent, friendly, and it was like basically innocent, friendly, and intelligent, like boy next door sort of vibes. And at that time I was like in, I guess, my early to mid 20s, probably mid 20s. And, I was invested in being, finding a mate and being masculine. I'm like innocent and friendly. Sounds like the friend zone. I was trying to, figure out who I was, and that just didn't really seem very manly. Of course I was in a rape crisis counseling center. I was going to be on the male line, and I was surrounded by women. So like I was very much like, not necessarily trying to maximize my masculine energy per se. But I was engaged in a different pursuit. But it was just interesting. And so like at the one point, like when he said those things, I had a lot of pretensions of like who I wanted to be. I wanted to be masculine. I wanted to be, like more traditionally masculine. And like there was a little bit of pain of realizing like, yeah, I'm just never going to come off as a more traditionally masculine guy. I talk too much. That's one thing. That innocent energy is not a bad thing. I'm an idealist, right? I am constantly trying to help people bridge the gap between where their lives are and their ideals. And my ability to kind of I don't live only in that ideal space, right? But like I think a lot of that innocence comes from the fact of like I bring a lot of hope and enthusiasm and idealism to these interactions. Because I'm using them to leverage people to move from like the daily repetition, the daily grind to closer to where they want to be. And so like that is an asset, even if, that doesn't match with a certain world-weary, cynical way of looking at the world that, feels gritty and deeply manly. Like it's not who I am, right? And that the being smart, I've always I've always realized I intellectualize things a lot. I've always like been somewhat uncomfortable with being labeled as smart, because when I grew up, that was synonymous with being nerdy, and plus like I just literally don't think of people in terms of IQ. I think there's so many different ways to exhibit genius, whether that's general intelligence or something else. There's ways to exhibit genius that are not IQ or book smarts, etc., that like the way people overemphasize traditional smarts rubs me the wrong way. But on the other hand, right, I realize like that is part of my value. My ability to conceptualize and model the big picture, right, is what I'm bringing to coaching. And then all of these other things, like I am not going to be a hard-bitten cynic. Like I just couldn't adopt that style. I can be critical, and all of that comes from my intellectual, like this is a critique that doesn't really fit with an accurate model of reality, right, kind of thing. I can lean on that for my critical nature, but ultimately I'm not cynical. I'm not very stoic. I have to, as a coach, constantly work on asking better questions. I feel like I let and encourage people to talk a lot, but like my own tendency to talk means I constantly have to focus on asking more and better questions. So there's ways, like I have to mitigate some of these strong personalities to be a coach. But being a coach is as much, or finding your authentic voice is as much about what you are not as what you are. And one of the signs that someone is moving towards their authentic voice is they start to let go of some of these things. So back in my early 20s at the crisis counseling center, I started to let go of, I started to let go of, certain visions of stereotypical masculinity that I'd been trying to live up to that I realized like wasn't me. Then more recently, right, I'm letting go of trying to be an expert who talks on a particular subject, for instance. That was my previous YouTube channel. I'm letting go because I'm realizing like, yeah, I do like explaining subjects, but at the end of the day, like everything I am as like a person that lights me up as a coach is really the interaction and like helping people not only have epiphanies, but like act on them and change their lives. Like that's what I do. And so these conversations with Meg, bam, they feel authentic in the way the cold emails that I mentioned earlier, or some of the earlier style on my channel really don't feel authentic. And I don't know if you're ever at the road, but like maybe this is more of like a periodic thing, like periodically check in and let go of the things that aren't serving you in your voice so you can spend more time on the things that are. And this has been way too long as it is, so yeah, I guess we're done.